Widowed woman and her children find abandoned ship. What she discovers inside is shocking. Rachel Thompson gazed at the horizon of Cape May Beach while her 5 children ran across the golden sand, enjoying their first family weekend since Marcus had passed away 6 months ago. Life as an elementary school teacher wasn't easy, but she worked hard to maintain their routine and bring some joy to the children who still deeply missed their father. It was little Ethan, just 7 years old, who first spotted the massive vessel stranded on the sand, partially hidden behind some rocks. "Mom, look at that big ship," shouted the boy, pointing toward the dark structure standing out against the orange evening sky. Rachel approached, adjusting the dark dress she insisted on wearing even after all this time. The ship appeared to have run aground recently, as it still maintained its intact structure, despite the rust beginning to take over the metal hull. "Can we go inside, Mom?" "Please," asked Emma, her 12-year-old daughter, always the most adventurous in the family. "I don't know, sweetie. It could be dangerous," Rachel replied, but her own curiosity was already stirring. Benjamin, the oldest at 15, approached the vessel and yelled, "There's no one here. It looks really abandoned." The 10-year-old twins, Noah and Oliver, had already run after their older brother, climbing up a rope hanging from the side of the ship. Rachel sighed, knowing it would be impossible to contain the children's excitement. "All right, but everyone stays close to me, and at the first sign of danger we leave immediately," she said, carefully climbing up the same rope. The ship's deck was surprisingly clean, as if someone still maintained the vessel. There were neatly coiled ropes, some fishing equipment, and even clothes hanging that swayed gently in the sea breeze. "How strange," murmured Rachel. "It seems like someone was here recently." Benjamin headed toward what appeared to be the main cabin, while Emma explored the area where the kitchen should be. The twins had found a small staircase leading to the basement, but Rachel called them back before they could go down. "Let's all stay together for now," she said, feeling an unexplained chill in her stomach. Ethan, always observant despite his young age, tugged at his mother's dress hem. "Mom, that man in the photo looks like Daddy." Rachel looked in the direction her son was pointing and saw, pinned to the outside wall of the cabin, a photograph slightly faded by the sun. Her heart raced when she recognized the familiar face. It was Marcus, her Marcus, smiling next to a man she had never seen in her life. "Where did you see that, sweetheart?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm so as not to frighten the children. "Over there, Mom, and there are more photos inside the cabin." Benjamin had managed to open the main cabin door and waved for the family to approach. The interior was impeccably organized, with a small table, some chairs, and several photographs hanging on the walls. Rachel entered slowly, her heart beating faster and faster. In every photo, Marcus appeared smiling, always beside the same dark-haired man with a graying mustache. They seemed like close friends, perhaps even business partners. "Mum, what was Daddy doing here?" asked Emma, noticing the tension on her mother's face. "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe he knew the owner of this ship," Rachel replied, but her mind was already buzzing with 1,000 questions. Marcus had always said he worked as a sales representative, traveling around the region selling agricultural equipment. He had never mentioned any involvement with ships or fishing. Noah found a slightly open drawer, and with the typical curiosity of a 10-year-old pulled it completely open. Inside were letters, many letters, all with the unmistakable handwriting of Marcus. "Mom, these are letters from Papa," shouted the boy, holding the yellowed envelopes. Rachel took one of the letters with trembling hands and began to read. The date was from 3 years ago, a period when Marcus took his business trips more frequently. "My dear friend Harold," the letter said, "once again I need to thank you for taking me in during these difficult times. You know how complicated my situation at home is, especially now that Rachel is pregnant again." Rachel's world collapsed. Complicated situation at home? She was pregnant with the twins at the time, and Marcus had always shown joy at the news. What complicated situation was this? She continued reading. "Sometimes I think it would be better for everyone if I just disappeared. But I know I can't abandon my responsibilities, neither here nor there. Responsibilities here and there. What did that mean?" "Mom, are you okay?" asked Benjamin, noticing the paleness on his mother's face. "Yes, son. Keep exploring. but don't go too far." Rachel put the letter in her pocket and continued searching the drawer. There were dozens of letters, all exchanged between Marcus and this Harold. Some dated back more than 10 years, others were much more recent. In one of the older letters, Marcus wrote, "Harold, you are my only true friend, the only person who knows the whole truth about my life. Sometimes I regret the choices I made, but now it's too late to turn back." What truth? What choices? Rachel felt as if she had discovered she had been married to a complete stranger. Emma called from the deck. "Mom, there's someone coming our way." Rachel quickly put some letters in her pocket and left the cabin. On the beach, about 200 meters away, a man was walking toward the ship. He was dark-haired, had a grey mustache, and looked about 60. It was the man from the photographs. "Children, come here," said Rachel, gathering her children around her. The man approached the ship and shouted, "Excuse me, that's my boat. What are you doing there?" "Sorry, sir," replied Rachel. "The children saw the stranded ship and got curious. We didn't know it had an owner." The man, who seemed kinder than his voice initially suggested, smiled. "No problem, I'm Harold Carter, and you are?" The name struck Rachel like lightning. Harold. The same Harold from the letters, Marcus's best friend. I'm Rachel Thompson," she said, watching the man's reaction closely. Harold stopped suddenly, as if he had seen a ghost. "Thompson? You said Thompson?" "Yes, Rachel Thompson, widow of Marcus Thompson." The man turned pale and had to lean against the side of the ship. "Marcus? How is he? I haven't heard from him in months." Marcus passed away 6 months ago. A car accident," said Rachel, realizing that Harold really didn't know the news. Harold broke down. He literally let himself fall onto the sand, covering his face with his hands. It can't be true." "Were you his friend?" asked Benjamin, always direct. "More than a friend, boy. He was like a brother." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Rachel helped Harold to his feet, and the two sat on the sand while the children continued exploring the ship. She needed answers, and that man clearly had all of them. "Harold, I found some letters in the cabin. Letters that Marcus wrote to you," she said, taking the papers out of her pocket. The man sighed deeply. "I imagined you would find out one day. Marcus always said it was a matter of time." "Find out what? What are you all talking about in these letters?" Harold looked at the children playing on the boat, then turned his eyes to Rachel. "Mrs. Rachel, what I'm about to tell you will hurt a lot. Are you sure you want to know?" "I need to know. I'm discovering I didn't know my own husband." Marcus didn't work as a sales representative. He was a fisherman. My partner on this boat." "What do you mean, a fisherman?" "He left every month to sell farming equipment." "No, Mrs. Rachel. He left every month to fish. We had a partnership here in the region. We fished and sold the fish to restaurants and markets in the city." Rachel felt as if the ground was moving beneath her feet. But why would he lie about that? What's wrong with being a fisherman? Harold hesitated before answering. Because he didn't want you to know he spent so much time away from home. And also because what? Because part of that time he wasn't fishing. What do you mean by that? Harold stood up and walked a few steps, clearly struggling with some internal conflict. "Mrs. Rachel, Marcus had another family." The words echoed in Rachel's mind like a scream. She felt her legs weaken. "Another family? A woman named Jennifer, and 2 young daughters. They lived in a fishing town 2 hours from here." Rachel couldn't process the information. 20 years of marriage, 5 children, and Marcus had another family. "For how long?" "About 8 years. He met Jennifer when we started fishing in that region. They fell in love and he just started living a double life. Marcus suffered a lot because of this, Mrs. Rachel. He loved you all, but he also loved Jennifer and the girls. He couldn't choose, so he decided to keep both families." Rachel looked at her children playing happily on the boat. unaware that their lives were being destroyed at that moment. The letters I found. He talked about responsibilities here and there. Exactly. He supported both families. That's why he needed to work so much, fish so much. He had to support 10 people. And Jennifer? Did she know about us? Harold lowered his head. No, to her you didn't exist either. Marcus told her he was a widower, that his first wife had passed away, leaving the 5 children with him. So she was deceived too. She was. Marcus lived 3 lives, that of a family man in Cape May, that of a widower in Beaufort, and that of a fisherman here at sea. Rachel stood up abruptly, feeling a mixture of anger, sadness, and confusion she had never experienced before. Where is this Jennifer now? I don't know. After Marcus's accident, I lost contact. The boat ran aground 2 months ago, and I've been trying to fix it since then. I haven't been able to go to Beaufort. Does she know that that he's gone? I have no idea. She's probably waiting for him to return, just like you were waiting for months before accepting that he wouldn't return anymore. Rachel looked at the boat again. Now everything made sense. The prolonged absences, the strange excuses, the money that sometimes was missing at home, the clothes smelling of sea that he said were from clients who lived near the beach. "Mum, we found more interesting things down here," shouted Emma from the boat's hold. "Coming, honey," replied Rachel, wiping the tears that had started to flow. "Mrs. Rachel, I'm sorry. Marcus made me promise that if something ever happened to him, I would tell the truth to both families." Both families? My God! Those 2 girls must be suffering as much as my children. Marcus left some things stored here on the boat. Letters for you, some personal items. Maybe they'll help you understand all this better. Rachel climbed back onto the boat, now seeing everything with different eyes. That was Marcus's workplace. There he spent days, perhaps weeks, living a life she had never known. In the basement, the children had found a locked wooden box. Benjamin had managed to force the lock, and now everyone was looking curiously at the contents. "Mom, there are letters with our names here," said Emma, holding some envelopes. Rachel came down and saw that there were indeed letters addressed to each of the children, and a special one for her. There were also some photographs she had never seen before. She picked up one of the photos and almost dropped it. It was Marcus smiling, hugging a brunette woman with curly hair and 2 little girls. A happy family at the beach. "Who are these people, Mom?" asked Ethan, always curious. Rachel looked at her 5 children staring at her expectantly. How could she explain that the father they loved so much and missed so dearly had lied to all of them for years? They're people your dad knew from work," she said, quickly putting the photo away. "Can I read my letter?" asked Benjamin, always eager. "Of course, son." Benjamin opened the envelope and began to read silently. His eyes filled with tears as he read. "Dad wrote that he loves me very much and that I need to take care of all of you," he said, looking at his younger siblings, "and that one day I will understand some complicated things about his life." Rachel felt a tightness in her chest. Marcus knew the truth would be discovered one day, and he was preparing the children for that moment. Emma also opened her letter and laughed through her tears. He wrote that I'm the bravest in the family, and that I should never be afraid to stand up for what's right, even when it hurts. The twins read their letters together, as they always did everything. Noah smiled. "He said we're special because we were born together, and that we'll always have each other for anything." "And what did he write to Ethan?" asked Rachel, noticing that her youngest son was still holding his envelope closed. "I can't read everything yet," said the boy. "Can I read it later?" "Of course, my love." Rachel picked up her own letter with trembling hands. The envelope was heavier than the others, indicating a long letter. "My dear Rachel," the letter began, "if you're reading this, it means you've discovered my second life, and I'm probably no longer here to explain everything in person." She stopped reading for a moment, taking a deep breath before continuing. "I know that nothing I say will justify what I did. Lying to you for so many years was the biggest mistake of my life, but I didn't know how to stop. When I met Jennifer, I should have been man enough to make a decision. But I was a coward. I love you, Rachel. I always have. And I love our 5 children more than my own life. But I also love Jennifer and the girls. I know this is wrong. I know I hurt everyone, but I couldn't choose. Please don't let our children hate me. I was a terrible husband to you, but I tried to be the best father I could for them. Every trip I took was a sacrifice because it meant being away from you. In the box, there is some saved money. It's not much, but it's all I could gather to ensure you'll be okay for a while. There's also Jennifer's address and phone number in case you ever want to talk to her. She was also a victim of my lies, Rachel, and those two girls are innocent. If you can, don't blame them for my mistakes. I know I'm asking too much, but would it be possible for you to meet? The girls are not at fault for anything, and perhaps you could help each other. Harold is a good man. He knows the whole truth and can help you with anything you need. Forgive me, my love. Forgive a man who loved too much and chose too little. With all my love and regret, Marcus. Rachel folded the letter and put it in her pocket, next to the others she had found. Her hands were shaking and she felt like screaming, crying, breaking something. But she looked at her children and controlled herself. "Mum, can we take some pictures home?" asked Emma, showing several photos of Marcus fishing and smiling. "Yes, you can, honey." Harold had boarded the ship and approached carefully. "Mrs. Rachel, did you find the letters?" "I did. And Helena's address, too. What do you plan to do?" Rachel looked at the sea stretching endlessly before her. She had two options: keep it all to herself and try to move on as if nothing had happened, or face the whole truth, no matter how painful it was. "I'm going to meet this Helena, and these girls who are my children's half-sisters. Are you sure? It could be very difficult." "It's already difficult, Harold. Finding out that my husband lived a double life for 8 years isn't exactly easy to swallow. But if there are two girls out there suffering, thinking their father abandoned them, I can't just ignore that. Marcus always said you were a strong woman. He said that even though he deceived me for so long, he said you were the most honest person he knew, and that he felt horrible for not being able to be as honest as you." Benjamin approached his mother. "Mum, can we talk?" Rachel stepped aside with her oldest son, leaving the others in Harold's care. "Mum, I understood some things from Dad's letter. He wasn't just our father, was he?" Rachel sighed. Benjamin had always been very observant for his age. "What do you think, son?" "I think he had another family, and I think you found out today." "How do you know that?" "By the way you reacted to the pictures, the letters, and the way this Mr. Harold looks at us like he knows something we don't." "And how do you feel about that?" Benjamin was silent for a few minutes, watching his younger siblings playing carefree. "I'm confused and a little angry, but also sad for Dad. It must have been very hard for him." "Why do you say that?" "Because Dad always seemed tired when he came back from his trips. It wasn't just work tiredness. It was a different kind of tiredness." Rachel hugged her son, impressed by his maturity. "Benjamin, what I'm going to do now will be very difficult for all of us. I need you to help me with your siblings, okay? Are we going to meet Dad's other family?" "We are. They're suffering too, and maybe we can help each other." "Will the others understand?" "Emma probably will. The twins might take a while. And Ethan, well, he's still very little." "Mum, can I ask you a question?" "Of course." "Do you still love Dad, even after finding out all this?" The question took Rachel by surprise. She stopped to think about the answer. "You know, Benjamin, love isn't a switch you turn on and off. I loved your father for 20 years. I'm not going to stop loving him overnight. But I'm very hurt, very confused. I'll need time to understand all these feelings. And what about us? Can we still love Dad?" "Of course you can, my son. He was a good father to you. The mistakes he made were with me, not with you." Benjamin seemed relieved by the answer. They returned to the others, and Harold approached Rachel. "Mrs. Rachel, I have Helena's phone number. Do you want me to call her?" "I'd rather go there in person. Some conversations need to be face-to-face. Beaufort is 2 hours from here. If you want, I can take you." "How?" "I have an old car, but it works, and I know the road well." Rachel looked at her children. It was an important decision, one that would change all their lives. "Kids, come here. I need to talk with you." The five of them approached, and Rachel took a deep breath before beginning. "You know that Papa traveled a lot for work, right?" "Yes," they answered in unison. "Well, we found out today that during those trips, he met other people, a family that also needs help now that Papa is gone." "What kind of family?" asked Emma. "A woman named Jennifer and 2 little girls." "And are we going to meet them?" asked Noah. "If you want to. But I want you to know it might be strange at first." "Why would it be strange, Anne?" asked Oliver. Rachel looked at Benjamin, who gave an almost imperceptible nod, indicating that she could tell the truth. "Because this family was also important to Papa. Very important." "Like us?" asked Ethan with the innocence of his 7 years. "Yes, my love. Like us." Emma, always quick to understand things, widened her eyes. "You mean that Papa... You mean that we have..." "You have 2 half-sisters," said Rachel, deciding that the truth was better than lies, even for children. The silence that followed was deafening. The children looked at each other, processing the information. It was Ethan who broke the silence. "Does that mean I'm not the youngest anymore?" Everyone laughed, even amid the tension of the moment. "No, my love. The girls are 6 and 4 years old. You're still the youngest of the boys." "And do they know about us?" asked Emma. "No, just as you didn't know about them." "Papa lied to everyone," said Noah, with a sadness that broke Rachel's heart. "Yes, he did, my son, but not out of malice. He was very confused and made wrong choices." "Are we going to live together now?" asked Oliver. "I don't know, son. First we need to meet this family and talk a lot." Harold approached. "Mrs. Rachel, if I may, I'd like to join you for that conversation. Marcus asked me to take care of everyone if something happened to him." "Of course you can. In fact, I think it will be better to have someone who knows the whole story." They spent the rest of the afternoon organizing the things found on the ship. There were Marcus's clothes that Rachel had never seen, some fishing tools, more photographs, and even some toys that clearly belonged to the 2 girls. When it started to get dark, Harold suggested they go to Beaufort the next day. "It's better to arrive there during the day, and you all need a night to process all this." Rachel agreed. She needed time to organize her own thoughts before facing Jennifer. On the way back home, the children asked a million questions. Emma wanted to know what the half-sisters were like. The twins asked if they liked soccer. Ethan wanted to know if they knew how to read. Benjamin remained quiet most of the time, clearly thinking about everything he had discovered. That night, after the children went to bed, Rachel stayed in the kitchen rereading Marcus's letters. Every word hurt, but she needed to understand how it had been possible to live with someone for so many years without really knowing him. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. One of the letters to Harold especially caught her attention. Marcus wrote, "Sometimes I wake up in the middle of the night thinking about what it would be like if I could bring the 2 families together. Rachel and Jennifer would get along well, I'm sure. The children would be great friends. But how to explain years of lies? How to ask for forgiveness for something like that?" Rachel wondered if Marcus was right. Could she and Jennifer really get along? Or would the hurt be too great for any kind of relationship? The next morning, Harold arrived early in his old but well-maintained car. The children were nervous and excited at the same time. Rachel had decided to share more details about the situation during the trip. "Kids, before we get there, I need you to understand something important," she said, once they were on the road. "Jennifer doesn't know you exist, just like you didn't know she existed." "What do you mean?" asked Emma. "Dad told her he was a widower, that he had 5 children, but that their mother was no longer present. He said you were..." Benjamin couldn't finish the sentence. "Yes, to her, I don't exist, so our arrival will be a huge shock." "Will she be angry?" asked Ethan. "She might be, my love. She has every right to be angry, confused, sad, just like we were yesterday." Harold spoke up from the driver's seat. "Mrs. Rachel, I called Jennifer last night." "What?" Rachel was startled. "Just to let her know I was coming to visit. I didn't tell her about you yet." "And what did she say?" That she's worried because it's been over 2 months since Marcus last showed up there. She thinks he might have found another job and forgotten about her. My God. She doesn't even know that No, she still thinks he's alive. Rachel realized the situation was even more complicated than she had imagined. She would have to tell Jennifer not only that Marcus had another family, but also that he had passed away. The trip to Beaufort was absolutely beautiful. The road passed through small coastal towns with colorful little houses and fishing boats anchored in small harbors. The children were distracted by the scenery, pointing out dolphins jumping in the distance and discussing what it would be like to fish in those calm waters. When they arrived in Beaufort, Harold drove directly to a simple neighborhood with small but well-kept houses. He stopped in front of a light blue house with a flower garden. "This is it," he said. Rachel felt her stomach tighten. On the other side of that door was a woman who had shared Marcus with her for 8 years, without either of them knowing. "Mum, I'm scared," Ethan confessed. "Me too, my love. But sometimes we have to do things that scare us." They got out of the car and walked slowly to the door. Harold rang the bell. A few seconds later, the door opened and a brunette woman with curly hair appeared, looking about 35. She looked exactly like in the photographs, but in person she seemed thinner with dark circles under her eyes that showed worry. "Harold!" she exclaimed, hugging the man. "I'm so glad you came. I was so worried about Marcus." It was then that she noticed Rachel and the children. "Hi," she said, a bit confused. "You are—" "Jennifer," said Harold, his voice careful. "This is Rachel Thompson, and these are the children." "Thompson?" Jennifer repeated the surname, a strange expression crossing her face. "Like Marcus." "Jennifer, I think we'd better talk sitting down," said Harold. "Of course, come in. Sorry for the mess the girls were playing." They entered the simple but cozy house. In the small living room, toys were scattered on the floor, and children's drawings were taped to the wall. "Papa Harold!" 2 voices shouted from the bedroom. 2 girls ran into the living room. The older one, about 6 years old, looked almost identical to Emma at that age. The younger one, 4 years old, had the big, curious eyes of Ethan. The girls stopped suddenly when they saw the visitors. "Hi," said the older one shyly. "Hi," replied Rachel's 5 children, equally shy. Jennifer looked confusedly from Rachel to the children, clearly trying to understand the situation. "Harold, what's going on? Who are these people?" Harold took a deep breath. "Jennifer, please sit down." She settled on the couch, pulling both daughters close to her. Rachel and her children took seats in the other chairs. "Jennifer, I have some very difficult news for you about Marcus." "Is he okay? Where is he? Why hasn't he come here in so long?" Marcus passed away 6 months ago. A car accident." Jennifer turned completely pale. One of the girls started crying without understanding why. "No, it can't be true. He said he'd be back soon." "It's true, Jennifer. And there's something else you need to know." Jennifer looked at Rachel as if seeing her for the first time. "Rachel is Marcus's wife. His legal wife. And these are his other 5 children." The silence that followed was so deep, you could hear the sound of waves breaking on the nearby beach. Jennifer stared at Rachel, then at the children, then back at Rachel. "Wife?" she whispered. "Marcus was married?" "For 20 years, Rachel said softly. "But he said he was a widower. That you had—" "I know. Harold told me what Marcus said to you." Jennifer stood up abruptly, still holding her 2 daughters. "This can't be happening. Marcus wouldn't do this to me. We were going to get married at the end of the year." "We were going to get married." It was Rachel's turn to be surprised. "He proposed to me 3 months ago, said he'd finally managed to overcome the loss of his first wife and was ready to start over." Rachel felt as if she'd been punched in the stomach. 3 months before he left, Marcus had proposed to another woman. "Jennifer, please sit down," Harold said. "There's much more you need to know." "More? What could be worse than finding out the man I loved was married and deceived me for years?" "The girls," Harold said, looking at the 2 children who were crying softly without understanding the situation. "What about the girls?" "They don't know the whole truth either," Jennifer looked confused at Harold. What truth? Marcus is not the girl's biological father. Now it was everyone's turn to be shocked. Rachel looked at Harold without understanding. What do you mean? Asked Jennifer. Do you remember Anthony, the girl's father? The fisherman who disappeared at sea when you were pregnant with the second one? Of course I remember. But what does that have to do with anything? Marcus knew that Anthony was married too, had another family in Charleston. When Anthony disappeared at sea, Marcus decided to take care of you as if he were the girl's father. But why would he lie about that? Because he wanted to protect you from the truth about Anthony, and because he wanted to have a family where he could be completely honest, since he couldn't be honest at home. Jennifer sank back onto the couch, hugging her daughters tighter. So Marcus wasn't anyone's father here? Yes, he was, Emma said, speaking for the first time. He may not be your daughter's biological father, but he loved them as his own. And we are your half-siblings. What do you mean? Marcus is our biological father, Benjamin explained. That makes all of us siblings in a way. Jennifer looked at the 7 children before her. 5 were clearly Marcus's children by their physical features. 2 were another man's daughters, but had been raised by Marcus as his own. This is crazy, she murmured. Yes, Rachel agreed, but it's our reality now. One of Jennifer's girls, the older one, slipped out of her mother's embrace and approached Emma. Are you my sister? She asked. I'm your half-sister, Emma replied, kneeling to be at the girl's level. What's your name? Sophia. And this is my sister, Olivia. I'm Emma, and these are Benjamin, Noah, Oliver, and Ethan. Sophia smiled shyly and waved at the boys. Do you want to play? Asked Olivia, the younger one, already more at ease. The twins stood up immediately. What kind of games do you know? And so, in the most natural way possible, the 7 children went to the backyard to play, leaving the 3 adults alone to talk. Jennifer was clearly in shock. Rachel, what did you come here for? To find out the truth and to meet you and the girls. You're not angry with me? I'm angry with Marcus. You were deceived too. But you knew he traveled often. Didn't you suspect anything? He said it was work. Business trips. I never imagined he had another family. And how did you find out? Rachel told her about the discovery of the stranded ship, the letters, the photographs, everything. So Harold knew everything from the beginning? Marcus made me promise that if anything happened to him, I would tell the truth to both families, said Harold. I never thought it would be so difficult. Jennifer, can I ask you a question? Said Rachel. Of course. How do you survive? Financially, I mean. Marcus left money every month. Not much, but enough to pay the basic bills, and I do some sewing work here in the neighborhood. And now? Now that he's no longer here? Jennifer lowered her head. It's very hard. The money he left ran out weeks ago. I owe rent, electricity, groceries. I don't know what to do. Rachel looked out the window, where the children were playing together as if they had known each other for years. Jennifer, have you ever thought about moving? Where and with what money? Marcus left a letter for me. It said he had saved some money for emergencies. It's on the ship. How much money? I don't know. Harold, do you know? I know where he kept the money, but I never counted it. Marcus always said it was in case something happened to him. And how much do you think there might be? Marcus saved a part of what he earned from fishing for over 5 years. It could be a considerable amount. Jennifer looked hopeful. Enough to pay my debts? Probably yes. And maybe more. But that money isn't mine, said Jennifer. Marcus had a real family. You have more right to it. Jennifer, said Rachel, standing up and sitting next to her on the sofa. Marcus made terrible mistakes with both of us, but he also took care of you and the girls for 8 years. That money is as much yours as it is mine. Do you really think so? I do. And I think one more thing. Our children liked each other from the first moment. Look at them. The 2 women looked out the window. The 7 children were playing tag in the backyard, laughing and running like old friends. It's amazing how quickly they adapted, said Jennifer. Children are like that. They don't have the prejudices we adults create. Rachel, can I make a confession? Of course. I always felt that Marcus was hiding something. He would get sad sometimes, kind of distant. When I asked, he said he was worried about work. I felt the same thing, especially in recent years. Do you think he suffered because of the situation? I'm sure. The letters I found showed that he was tormented. He couldn't choose between the two families, so he chose to lie to both. And now, what are we going to do? Rachel took a deep breath. She had a proposal to make, but didn't know if Jennifer would accept. Jennifer, what if we joined forces? What do you mean? We were both deceived by the same man. We're both in financial trouble. We have 7 children to care for, and from what I see, they would get along very well living near each other. Are you suggesting that we do what Marcus never had the courage to do? Let's bring the two families together. Honestly, this time. Jennifer was silent for a long time. But we barely know each other. That's true. But we have a lot in common. We both loved a man who didn't know how to be honest with us. We both practically raised our children alone. We're both facing difficulties. And wouldn't you feel angry every time you looked at me? Initially, perhaps. But it's not your fault that Marcus lied. If you had known he was married, would you have gotten involved with him? Never. I'm not the kind of woman who gets involved with a married man. Then you're also a victim of the situation. Harold, who had remained quiet during the conversation, spoke up. If I may, I think Marcus would be happy if he knew you two had become friends. Why do you think that? Asked Jennifer. Because in the letters he wrote me, he always said he wished you could meet. He said you were alike in many ways. What ways? Asked Rachel. Strength, determination, love for your children. Marcus always said he was lucky to have 2 such special women in his life, but that he felt unworthy of both. He really wrote that? He did. And he always said that if the truth ever came out, he hoped you wouldn't hate each other. Jennifer stood up and went to the window to watch the children. Rachel, do you have a place to live? I have a small house in Cape May. I pay rent, but it's very cheap. And work? I'm an elementary school teacher. The salary isn't much, but it's stable. A teacher. Jennifer smiled for the first time since they arrived. I always wanted to finish my studies. I dropped out in my first year of high school when I got pregnant with Sophia. It's never too late to go back to school. Do you think you could help me with that? Of course, I'd love to. And you, what do you know how to do? I sew very well. I make dresses, mend clothes, embroider. Before I met Marcus, I supported the whole household with sewing. That's great, I can't even sew a button on right. The 2 women smiled at each other, and for the first time since they met, the tension in the air eased a bit. Harold, said Rachel, shall we go get that money Marcus saved? Now? Why not? The sooner we sort out the financial situation, the sooner we can make plans for the future. Do you want me to come along? Asked Jennifer. Of course. The money is as much yours as it is mine. They called the children and explained they were going for a walk. To the adults' surprise, the 7 children asked to stay and play together in Jennifer's backyard. Mum, can I stay here with Sophia and Olivia? Asked Emma. What about us? Asked the twins. Of course, but stay together and don't leave the yard. Benjamin, naturally taking on the role of the older brother, said, I'll take care of everyone, Mom. You can go without worry. On the way back to the ship, Jennifer asked many questions about Rachel's life and her children. Rachel, in turn, wanted to know more about how Jennifer had met Marcus. I had just had Olivia when Marcus showed up here, Jennifer recounted. Anthony, the girl's father, had disappeared at sea a year earlier. I was desperate, with no money, no job, with 2 small children. And Marcus just appeared in your life? Not exactly. He was fishing with Harold in the area and heard my story. He offered help, started bringing food, paying some bills. He said he knew what it was like to raise children alone. And you grew closer. Slowly. I was very hurt by what Anthony had done to me. Marcus was very patient, very caring. What had Anthony done? The same thing Marcus did to us. He had another family. When I found out I was pregnant with our second daughter, I told him and he disappeared. Later I found out he had run off with his other family to Charleston. My God. So Marcus knew exactly what you had been through. He did. That's why I thought he would never do the same thing to me. And he really proposed to you? He did, 3 months ago. He said he had managed to resolve some pending matters from his previous life and was free to start over with me. Rachel fell silent. Pending matters? Was Marcus planning to leave her? Jennifer, do you know what those matters were? He didn't go into details. He said he had some family issues to resolve, but that everything was being taken care of. Harold, do you know what Marcus was planning? Harold sighed. Mrs. Rachel, Marcus was very confused these past few months. He wanted to tell the truth to both families, but didn't know how. And the marriage proposal to Jennifer? I think it was an impulse. He knew he couldn't get married while still married to you, but perhaps he was planning to ask for a divorce. Divorce? He never mentioned divorce to me, because he didn't have the courage to hurt you. Marcus always said you were the most important woman in his life, but that he felt very guilty for loving Jennifer too. They reached the ship as the sun was setting. The vessel seemed even more mysterious in the golden twilight. Where exactly did Marcus keep the money? Asked Rachel. In an improvised safe he installed in the basement, said Harold. They went down to the lowest part of the ship. Harold moved some boxes of fishing equipment and revealed a small safe embedded in the wall. Do you know the combination? Asked Jennifer. Yes, Marcus told me in case something happened to him. Harold spun the numbers. 25080312. What do these numbers mean? Asked Rachel. The birth dates of your children, said Harold. The safe opened with a soft click. Inside were several bundles of money, some documents, and 2 sealed letters. Wow, whispered Jennifer. How much money is this? Harold quickly counted. About $50,000, maybe a bit more. 50,000? Rachel was surprised. How did Marcus manage to save all this? He fished a lot, Mrs. Rachel, and he religiously saved part of everything he earned. He said he wanted to secure the children's future. Which family's children? Asked Jennifer. All 7 children. Jennifer picked up one of the sealed letters. It was addressed to Rachel and Jennifer in case something happens to me. I think we should read it together, she said, offering the letter to Rachel. Rachel opened the letter and began reading aloud. My dear Rachel and Jennifer, if you're reading this letter together, it means you've finally discovered the truth about my double life. I know I must be the worst person in the world in your eyes right now, but I need you to know that I love you both more than my own life. Rachel, you were my first love, the mother of my children, my companion during the best years of my life. If I could go back, I would have been the husband you deserved from day one. Jennifer, you saved me when I was lost, gave me a second chance at happiness, showed me it was possible to love differently, but just as deeply. The money in this safe is for both of you, so you can take care of the children, so you can have a better life, so perhaps you can do what I never managed, unite our 2 families honestly and truthfully. I know I'm asking for the impossible. I know it's very audacious of me to hope you might become friends after everything I've done. But if there's even the slightest chance you can come together for the children's sake, please try. Benjamin, Emma, Noah, Oliver, and Ethan are the 5 people I love most in the world. Sophia and Olivia are the 2 princesses who taught me that the heart can love more people than we imagine. If you can raise these 7 children together, they'll have the big, loving family I always dreamed of giving them, but never had the courage to build. Please forgive me, and please take care of each other. With all my love and regret, Marcus. When Rachel finished reading, both she and Jennifer were crying. He truly loved us, said Jennifer. Yes, he did. He just didn't know how to show it honestly. Jennifer picked up the second letter. It was addressed to my 7 children. I think they should read it when we're all together, she said. I agree. Harold divided the money into 2 equal parts and handed them to the 2 women. Now you have the means to get back on your feet financially, he said. Harold, said Rachel, what will happen to the boat? I'll try to fix it and sell it. Marcus owned 50% of the partnership, so half the money from the sale is also yours. We don't want money from the boat, said Jennifer. You worked just as hard as Marcus to buy that vessel. Thank you, but if you ever need anything, I'll always be available. Marcus made me promise I'd take care of both families. When they returned to Jennifer's house, it was already dark. The children had made a small makeshift bonfire in the backyard, under Benjamin's supervision, and were roasting sweet potatoes. "Mum," shouted Ethan when he saw Rachel, "Olivia makes better sandcastles than I do." "And Noah taught me how to play soccer with my left foot," said Sophia. "Mum, can I stay here tonight?" asked Emma. "Sophia has some really cool books." Rachel looked at Jennifer, who smiled. "They can all stay. If we have space on the living room floor, it'll be fun." And so, for the first time in their lives, the 7 children slept under the same roof. Sophia and Olivia stayed in the room with Emma and Ethan, while the 3 boys settled in the living room. Rachel and Jennifer stayed up talking in the kitchen until late at night, discovering they had much more in common than they imagined. Both had grown up in simple families. Both had struggled to educate their children. Both dreamed of a more stable life. "Rachel, can I make a crazy proposal?" said Jennifer when it was past midnight. "Of course. What if we move to a town where neither of us has any history, a place where we can start over together?" "Do you really think that would work? Look at them." Jennifer pointed to the living room where the 7 children slept scattered on the floor, all mixed together like one big family. "They're already a family. We're the ones complicating things. It would be a big change for everyone." "It would, but maybe it's exactly what we need. A complete change. Where would we go?" "I don't know. Some town not too big, not too small, where you can teach and I can work with sewing." "And how would we explain our situation to other people?" "The truth. We're 2 widows who met and decided to raise our children together. It's not a lie." Rachel considered the proposal. It was frightening, but also exciting. "Jennifer, do you really think we can be friends after all this?" "I don't know, but I think it's worth trying, for the children, and for us too." "All right, let's try." The next morning, the children woke up excited about the idea of living together. Benjamin, always pragmatic, asked many questions about school, about the new house, about what life would be like in an extended family. Emma was thrilled with the idea of having sisters. The twins wanted to know if the new house would have a big backyard to play soccer. Ethan was happy not to be the youngest in the family anymore. Sophia and Olivia, who had recently lost their father, seemed relieved to have older siblings to look after them. During breakfast, Rachel read the letter Marcus had left for the children. It was a beautiful letter, explaining, in a way suitable for children, that he had made mistakes, but loved all 7 children equally. The letter ended with a request: take care of each other. Be the united family I never managed to build for you. "Did Papa want us all to be siblings?" asked Olivia. "Yes, he did," replied Jennifer. "Then let's be," said the girl, hugging Ethan. She spent the rest of the week organizing the move. Harold helped with the legal and bureaucratic procedures. They chose Moorhead City, a coastal town between Cape May and Beaufort, where they could start over without carrying the weight of the past. Rachel managed to get a transfer to a local school. Jennifer set up a small sewing studio at home. With the money Marcus had saved, they were able to rent a large house with 4 bedrooms and a spacious backyard. The adjustment wasn't easy. There were fights among the children, arguments between Rachel and Jennifer about parenting methods, tense moments when differences became too evident. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. But there were also magical moments, like when Emma taught Sophia how to make beaded bracelets, when the twins taught Olivia how to ride a bike, when Benjamin helped all the younger kids with their homework, when Ethan finally had someone smaller than him to care for. 3 months after the move, they faced their first major challenge. Sophia fell ill with pneumonia and had to be hospitalized for a week. It was then that Rachel realized how attached she had become to the 2 girls who technically weren't her daughters. She spent every night at the hospital, taking turns with Jennifer. She cared for Sophia as if she were her own daughter, sang lullabies, told stories, wiped away tears of fear. When Sophia recovered and returned home, she hugged Rachel and said, "Thank you, Mama Rachel." It was the first time one of the girls had called her Mom, and Rachel cried with emotion. Jennifer, in turn, had become the second mother to Rachel's 5 children. Benjamin talked to her about things he couldn't discuss with his own mother. Emma asked for advice about boys and body changes. The twins sought her out when they fought with each other. Ethan had adopted Jennifer as his official bedtime storyteller. 1 year after the move, the 2 women were having coffee in the kitchen while the children played in the backyard. "Rachel, can I say something?" "Of course." "I never thanked you for giving me a chance." "What are you talking about? You could have been angry with me. You could have blamed me for the whole situation. You could have stayed with just your kids and left me alone to fend for myself." "Jennifer, that never crossed my mind." "Yes, it did. On the first day when you looked at me from the car door, I saw in your eyes that you thought about leaving." Rachel smiled. "That's true. For a few seconds I thought, why do I have to deal with this? But then I looked at your daughters and saw how much they needed a family." "And now?" "Now I can't imagine our life without you two. Sophia and Olivia are as much my daughters as Emma. And your 5 are as much my children as the girls." They fell into a comfortable silence, watching the 7 children play together. Benjamin had grown about 4 inches and was becoming a responsible and caring teenager. Emma was helping Sophia with homework. The twins were teaching Olivia and Ethan how to play a game with marbles. "You know what's funniest?" said Jennifer. "What?" "I think Marcus got what he wanted. We're a real family now." "It's true. A strange family, but a family." "Strange how?" 2 mothers, 7 children, no father present, built on lies that became truths. When you put it that way, it does sound kind of crazy. But it works. It works. 2 years later, they faced another challenge. Benjamin, now 17, wanted to know more details about his father's story. He was at the age of questioning everything and was no longer satisfied with simplified explanations. Rachel and Jennifer decided to tell him the full story, including all the painful details about Marcus's lies. "So Dad lied to me when he said he was traveling for work?" asked Benjamin. "He did," admitted Rachel. "And did he really love Aunt Jennifer?" "He did. And you two weren't angry at each other?" "We were at first," said Jennifer. "But we realized that anger wouldn't solve anything." "And do you think I should be angry at Dad?" Rachel and Jennifer looked at each other before answering. "Benjamin," said Rachel, "your father made serious mistakes. He lied to many people, hurt many people, but he also loved deeply. And he left behind a beautiful family." "You can be angry at him if you want," added Jennifer. "You have that right, but don't let the anger be greater than the good things he taught you." Benjamin remained thoughtful for a long time. "I think I'll be angry at him for a while, but I'll also keep loving him. Can you do both at the same time?" "Yes, my son," said Rachel, hugging her son. "Perfectly." 3 years after moving to Morehead City, the 2 families had become one so naturally that people in town knew them as the teacher's family. Rachel had gone back to school and specialized in special education. Jennifer had finished high school and started a technical course in fashion design. Jennifer's sewing studio had prospered so much that she needed to hire 2 assistants. Rachel had been promoted to educational coordinator at the school where she worked. The 7 children were all doing well. Benjamin had entered university to study engineering and still lived at home. Emma, now 15, was one of the best students in school and dreamed of becoming a doctor. The twins, Noah and Oliver, had become excellent soccer players and were being watched by scouts from local teams. Ethan, at 10 years old, was a cheerful and communicative child who loved to read and tell stories. Sophia, at 9, had inherited Jennifer's talent for sewing and was already making her own doll clothes. Olivia, at 7, was artistic like Emma and spent hours drawing and painting. It was on a Sunday afternoon while the whole family was having a picnic on the beach that Jennifer asked, "Rachel, are you happy?" "I am. And you?" "Very. Happier than I ever imagined possible, even with all the mess it took to get here. Especially because of the mess. If Marcus hadn't lied to both of us, maybe we would never have met." "That's an interesting way to see things. It's the only way that allows me to forgive completely. Marcus was terribly wrong, but in the end, his mistakes brought us something wonderful. Rachel looked at the 7 children playing in the sand. Benjamin was helping Olivia build a castle. Emma and Sophia were searching for seashells. The twins were playing paddleball with Ethan. "Jennifer, can I make a confession?" "Of course." "Sometimes I thank Marcus for the lies he told." "Why?" "Because if he had been honest from the start, he probably would have chosen one of us and left the other. And then I would never have met you and the girls. And I would never have met you and the boys." "Exactly. His lies created a horrible situation, but they also created the possibility for us to build something new and better. Something that might be stronger precisely because it was built upon so much suffering." Harold, who had become part of the extended family and visited them regularly, approached the 2 women. "May I interrupt the philosophical conversation?" "Of course, Harold. I have news for you." "Good or bad?" asked Jennifer. "Good, I hope. I managed to sell the ship." "For how much?" asked Rachel. $80,000, and as promised, half is yours." "Harold, we've already talked about this. We don't want money from the ship. And I already told you that Marcus made me promise I would take care of you. This money can secure the college education for the 7 children." Jennifer and Rachel looked at each other. Indeed, $40,000 would be enough to invest in the children's education. "All right," said Jennifer, "but with one condition." "What?" "You stop feeling obligated to take care of us. You've already done more than enough. Now we want you here as chosen family, not as an obligation." Harold smiled. "Can I be the children's grandpa?" "You can be whatever you want," said Rachel. That night, after the children had gone to bed, Rachel and Jennifer stayed on the porch looking at the sea. "Jennifer, have you ever thought about getting married again?" "I think about it sometimes." "And you?" "Me too. But then I look at our family and think, how would a man fit into this whole story? It is complicated indeed. It would have to be someone very special to accept 2 mothers, 7 children, and a story like ours. Maybe we don't need any man. Maybe we already have everything we need. That's a possibility. But it's also possible that one day someone will come along who complements our family instead of complicating it. If that happens, we'll talk. For now, I'm happy with our strange and wonderful family. Me too." 5 years after moving to Morehead City, the family faced another important transformation. Benjamin graduated from college and got a job in New York. It would be the first time one of the children would leave home. The farewell was emotional. All the younger children cried. Emma, now 18 and about to start medical school, promised to visit him often. "Mom," Benjamin said to Rachel at the time of the farewell, "thank you for building our family. It wasn't just me, son. Yes, it was. You made the hardest and rightest decision of your life when you decided to look for Aunt Jennifer. And if I hadn't made that decision, we would all be poorer in every way." Benjamin hugged Jennifer. "Aunt, thank you for helping me understand my dad, for showing me that it's possible to forgive and build something good on top of pain. Thank you for accepting me as a second mother. You're not a second mother. You're a mother, period, just as Mum Rachel is the girl's mother." When Benjamin left for New York, the house felt strange without him, but it also became clear how much the family had strengthened over the years. Emma naturally took on the role of the older sister. The twins, now 15, had become responsible and caring young people. Ethan, Sophia, and Olivia formed an inseparable trio. 2 years later, it was Emma's turn to leave for college. She chose a university 2 hours from Morehead City so she could come back on weekends. "Mom," she said to Rachel the day before moving, "do you think I'll be able to explain to people at college what our family is like?" "Why would you need to explain?" "Because it's complicated. 2 mothers, 7 children, different fathers for some. A history of bigamy in the past. Emma, our family may have started in a complicated way, but today it's very simple. It's a family full of love, respect, and companionship. Whoever can't understand that, that's their problem. And if someone judges, let them judge. You know who you are, where you come from, and where you're going. This is what matters." Jennifer approached. "Emma, can I give you some advice?" "Of course, Mama Jennifer. Tell our story with pride, because it's a story of overcoming, forgiveness, unconditional love. There's nothing to be ashamed of. Do you really believe that? I'm sure, said Rachel. Look at what we've built. Look at who you've become. 7 educated, caring, responsible children. 2 families that became one better family. Emma hugged both mothers. I love you both, and I'm very proud of our crazy family. The following years brought more changes. The twins received an offer to play soccer professionally for a second division team. Jennifer opened a women's clothing store that became one of the most sought after in the region. Rachel was promoted to school principal. Ethan excelled in his studies and began considering an academic career. Sophia further developed her talent for sewing and design. Olivia discovered a calling for music and started guitar lessons. Harold, now officially Grandpa Harold to the 7 children, had moved into a small house near the family and became a daily presence in everyone's routine. It was on a Christmas night, 10 years after the first time the 2 families met, that the most important conversation between Rachel and Jennifer took place. "Jennifer, are you happy?" asked Rachel as they watched the 7 children, now young adults and teenagers, playing in the backyard as if they were still little. "Happier than I ever dreamed possible. Even though you never remarried." "Especially because I never remarried." "Why do you say that?" "Because building our family with you taught me that love doesn't need to be romantic to be complete. The love we have here is complete." "That's true. We have partnership, friendship, complicity, shared goals, division of responsibilities. We have everything a couple needs to have except sex. And we don't miss it. We don't." "Jennifer, can I ask a personal question?" "Of course." "Have you ever regretted any decision we made over these years?" Jennifer thought for a long time before answering. "Once. Just once." "When?" "In the 3rd year, when Benjamin was going through that rebellious phase and questioning everything. He said some very harsh things about his father, about our family, about the choices we made. I remember. He said we were 2 bitter women who got together to raise traumatized children. That night I kept thinking, could he be right? Did I harm my daughters by joining our family with yours? And what was your conclusion? That Benjamin was angry and speaking from pain, not reason, and that even if there was some truth in what he said, we still did the right thing." "Why?" "Because look where we are now. Look at who they've become. We don't have traumatized children. We have strong children who know how to handle difficult situations, who know how to forgive, who know how to build solid relationships." Rachel agreed. "And they know that family isn't just blood. It's choice, it's love, it's commitment." "Exactly. Our children know that because they've lived it." "And you, Rachel, have you ever regretted anything?" "Just one thing." "What?" "Not discovering the truth about Marcus sooner." "Why?" "Because then, maybe you 2 wouldn't have suffered for so long. You thinking he was going to marry you, me thinking he was just working too much. But if you had found out earlier, what would our story have been like?" Rachel thought. "I probably would have gotten very angry, would have filed for divorce, and you would have stayed with Marcus. And our children would never have met." "True. So maybe it was better this way after all." "You know what I think?" said Jennifer. "What?" "I think Marcus, even with all his mistakes, gave us the greatest gift possible." "What gift?" "He gave us each other." Rachel smiled. "That's a beautiful way to see things." "It's the true way. Because if it weren't for him, 2 women like us would never have met. I was a poor seamstress in Beaufort, you were a teacher in Cape May. What chance did we have of meeting? None. So, no matter how much he messed up, no matter how much he lied, no matter how much he hurt everyone in the end, he created the possibility for us to build something beautiful." "Jennifer, can I make a confession?" "Always. Sometimes I dream about Marcus." "Dream what?" "I dream that he's alive, that he's here with us and that our family is complete. I dream that somehow magically we managed to sort out the whole mess and all live together." "And how do you feel when you wake up?" "Sad for a moment because I realize it was just a dream, but then I feel grateful for everything we have. I dream about him sometimes too." "Really?" "I do. And in my dreams, he always thanks me for taking care of his children and for making me his best friend. His best friend? Yeah, yours. In my dreams, Marcus always says he knew that if we ever met, we'd become best friends. And do you think we were friends, or are we more than that? Jennifer stopped to think. I think we're family, not just because we raised kids together, but because we chose to be family. We chose to build something together. We chose to face hardships together. We chose to be happy together. That's true. We're family by choice. And it's the strongest kind of family there is. That same night, after everyone had gone to sleep, Rachel and Jennifer stayed in the kitchen organizing the Christmas presents they would give the next day. Jennifer, can I say something? Of course. Thank you. Thank you for what? For giving me a second chance at happiness, for helping me raise our kids, for becoming my best friend, for turning the worst discovery of my life into the best thing that ever happened to me. Jennifer stopped what she was doing and looked directly at Rachel. Rachel, you know I love you, right? I love you too. No, I mean I really love you. I love you as a person, as a mother to my children, as a friend, as a life partner. I love everything about you. Me too. And you know what's funniest? What? That our love is more solid than many marriages I know. It's true, we know each other completely. We know each other's strengths and flaws. We know how we react under pressure. We know how to support each other. And we choose to stay together every day. Exactly. It's not obligation, it's not dependency, it's choice. Jennifer, whatever the future brings, wherever our kids go, whatever changes life brings, I want you to know that these 10 years with you have been the best of my life. Mine too, and you know why? Why? Because they were the most honest years of my life. For the first time I could be completely myself with someone. How so? With Marcus, I always felt like I had to be perfect, like I couldn't show weaknesses, like I had to be the woman he wanted me to be. With you, I can be who I really am. With me, you can be grumpy, you can cry, you can have doubts. I can disagree with you, I can make mistakes, I can not know what to do, and I know you'll still love me the same. Because that's what family does. Loves without conditions. Exactly. On Christmas morning, the whole family gathered to open presents. Benjamin had returned from New York. Emma had brought her new boyfriend to meet the family. The twins were on break from training. Ethan, Sophia, and Olivia were beaming with school holidays. Harold arrived early, loaded with presents for the grandkids. "Grandpa Harold," said Olivia, now 17 and a beautiful young woman, "can you tell the story again of how our family met?" "Again? You've all heard this story 1,000 times. But we like it," said Sophia. "And today there are new people here," added Emma, looking at her boyfriend. "All right, but this time I'll tell the full version." Harold settled into his favorite armchair and began. "Once upon a time there were two women who loved the same man. Only this man was very confused and couldn't choose between them. So he decided to lie to both of them and live two lives." "What a silly man," commented Ethan. "Yes, very silly. But he also loved deeply. The problem was, he didn't know how to love honestly." "And then?" asked Emma's boyfriend. "Then one day both women discovered the truth, and they discovered they had much more in common than they imagined." "Like what?" asked Olivia, even though she already knew the story by heart. Both were dedicated mothers. Both had been deceived. Both were struggling to raise their children alone. And both had hearts big enough to forgive. "And they decided to be friends?" asked Sophia. "They decided to be more than friends. They decided to be family. And they created the most beautiful family I've ever seen in my life." "And they lived happily ever after?" asked Olivia. "They're living," said Rachel. "We're still writing our story." "And what a beautiful story it's being," said Jennifer. Benjamin stood up. "Can I say something?" "Of course, son. I'm proud to have this family. I'm proud to have 2 mothers, to have 6 siblings, to have a grandpa who chose to be our grandpa. I'm proud of how you turned a horrible situation into something beautiful." Emma agreed. "In college, when people ask me about my family, I tell our story with great pride. because it shows that love is stronger than betrayal, that forgiveness is stronger than anger, that choice is stronger than blood. The twins spoke up. "And we learned that family is who stands by your side when you need them," said Noah. "And who loves you even when you make mistakes," completed Oliver. Ethan, now 15 and an articulate teenager, said, "Our family is proof that you can build beautiful things even when everything seems lost." Sophia and Olivia agreed, and that sometimes the best things in life come from the hardest moments. Harold wiped a tear from his eye. "Marcus would be so proud to see who you've become." "I think he knows," said Jennifer. "I think wherever he is, he's happy to have left such a close-knit family. And I think he finally understood what real love is," added Rachel. "Real love isn't about possessing. It's about seeing the people you love happy, even if it's not exactly how you planned." 15 years after that first meeting at Cape May Beach, the family had grown even more. Benjamin had married and given 2 granddaughters to Rachel and Jennifer. Emma had graduated as a doctor and worked at a hospital in New York. The twins played soccer professionally for different teams, but remained inseparable. Ethan had become a university literature professor. Sophia had started her own clothing brand. Olivia had become a recognized musician in the region. Rachel had retired from her position as school principal, but continued giving private lessons. Jennifer had expanded her store and now had 3 employees. Harold, now 75, remained the beloved patriarch of the family. One Sunday afternoon, 3 generations gathered at the house in Morehead City to celebrate 15 years of the unified family, as they affectionately called it. "Mom," said Benjamin to Rachel, while watching his 2 young daughters playing with Emma's children, "thank you for giving me the most beautiful family in the world. It wasn't just me, son. It was all of us together." "That's true, but you made the first decision. The decision to seek the truth, even knowing it would hurt." Jennifer approached. "And thank you for making the second decision. The decision not to hate me." "How could I hate you? You were just as lost as I was." "Not all women would think that way." "Maybe, but I looked at your daughters and saw that they needed a family as much as my children did." Emma, now a 33-year-old woman, joined the conversation. "Do you know what's most impressive about our story?" "What?" "That there are no heroes or villains. Everyone made mistakes, everyone suffered, everyone learned." "That's true," agreed Ethan. "Papa made mistakes, but out of love. You too suffered, but you knew how to forgive. We children were victims, but we became stronger." Sophia and Olivia, now grown women, approached. "And we learned that family isn't about perfection," said Sophia. "It's about accepting imperfections and building beautiful things anyway." "And that true love isn't jealousy or possession," added Olivia. "It's wanting what's best for the other even when it hurts." Harold, observing the whole conversation, smiled. "Do you know what Marcus used to tell me in the last letters we exchanged?" "What?" everyone asked. "That if one day the truth came out and you met each other, he was sure you would build something much better than he ever managed to build." "And did we?" asked Rachel. "You built the most united, loving, and strongest family I've ever known." Jennifer hugged Rachel. "Thank you for these 15 wonderful years. Thank you for agreeing to this crazy adventure with me. And thank you to us for having the luck to have you two as mothers," said Emma, hugging both women. "And as grandmothers," added Benjamin, watching the granddaughters play. "And you?" Rachel asked the younger children. "Do you regret anything?" "Not at all," said Ethan. "Our story is perfect just the way it is. Even Papa's mistakes were important," said Sophia, "because without them we wouldn't have our family." "It's strange to say this, but I'm grateful for his lies," said Olivia, "because they brought you into our lives." Harold stood up and went to an old cabinet. From there he took out a box no one had seen before. "What's that, Grandpa?" asked Emma. "These are the last letters Marcus wrote to me. Letters he asked me to give to you when the family was complete and happy." "And when would that be?" asked Jennifer. "He said I would know when the time came. And I think the time has come." Harold opened the box and took out 7 letters, 1 for each of the children, and 2 larger letters. "These 2 are for you," he said, handing 1 letter to Rachel and another to Jennifer. "And these are for you," he said, distributing the letters to the children. "Can we read them now?" asked Ethan. Of course. That's why I brought them. Everyone opened their letters at the same time. The silence that followed was moving, interrupted only by the sounds of the young children playing in the backyard. Benjamin was the first to speak. Papa wrote that he's proud of the man I've become, and that he knows I'll be a better father than he was. Emma was crying. He said he admires my courage to follow my calling, and that he hopes I heal many people and be happy. The twins read their letters together. He said we're proof that two people can be different and still inseparable, said Noah, and that he hopes we always take care of each other, completed Oliver. Ethan smiled through tears. He wrote that I'm the most sensitive in the family, and that this is a gift, not a weakness. Sophia was thrilled. He said he knows I'll create beautiful clothes and make many women feel beautiful. Olivia couldn't stop crying. He wrote that music is the language of the heart and that my heart is pure. Rachel opened her letter with trembling hands and read aloud, "My dear Rachel, if you're reading this letter, it means my family has finally become complete, not in the way I planned, but in the right way. You were the most important woman in my life, not because you were the first, not because you were my legal wife, but because you taught me what unconditional love is. You loved our children before they were even born. You loved me despite my flaws. And I know you loved Jennifer and the girls even after discovering the whole truth. You're the most principled person I've ever known, and that's why I knew if you ever found out about Jennifer, you'd do the right thing. I knew you wouldn't let two children suffer because of my mistakes. Thank you for being a perfect mother to our children. Thank you for becoming a mother to the girls, too. Thank you for forgiving a man who didn't deserve forgiveness. Take care of our big, beautiful family. Be happy. You deserve all the happiness in the world. With all my love and admiration, Marcus." Jennifer then read her letter. "My dear Jennifer, you saved me when I was lost, gave me a second chance at happiness, taught me it's possible to love in different but equally deep ways. I know I lied to you about many things, but I never lied about my feelings. I truly loved you, and truly wanted to marry you. I just didn't know how to fix the mess I'd created myself. You're a strong, independent, and courageous woman. I know you'll raise the girls to become amazing women, and I know you'll become the best friend Rachel could have. You two are very similar. Both fighters, both dedicated mothers, both capable of forgiving and building beautiful things from pain. Take care of Rachel for me, and let her take care of you too. With all my love and gratitude, Marcus." When all the letters had been read, the family remained silent for a long time. "He really knew us," said Emma. "And really believed we'd get along," said Jennifer. "Maybe he knew from the start that you two were meant to be friends," said Harold. "And that we were all meant to be a family," added Benjamin. Rachel looked around, seeing her entire family gathered. Children, grandchildren, Hart mother-in-law, as she called Jennifer's mother, who had moved to Moorhead City too, sons-in-law, daughters-in-law, friends who had become family. "You know what I think," she said. "What?" everyone asked. "I think Marcus got the method wrong but the result right. He wanted a big, close-knit family, and he got it. Just in a way even he couldn't have imagined." "That's true," Jennifer agreed. "He planted the seed of something beautiful, even if he did it the wrong way. And we nurtured that seed until it became this beautiful tree," said Emma, pointing to the whole family. "With many branches," said Ethan. "And many fruits," added Sophia. "And very deep roots," completed Olivia. Harold stood up. "I think I can speak for Marcus when I say mission accomplished." "What do you mean?" asked Rachel. "The mission of leaving a happy family. He succeeded." "We succeeded," Jennifer corrected. "All of us, together." "That's true, but he planted the seed." At that moment, one of Benjamin's granddaughters ran into the house crying. "What happened, sweetheart?" asked Emma, crouching down to the girl's level. "I fell and got hurt." Immediately, Rachel, Jennifer, Emma, Sophia, and Olivia rushed to care for the child. Benjamin, Ethan, and the twins went to check if everything was okay. Harold went to get a bandage. Within seconds, the entire family was mobilized to care for a small scrape on a 4-year-old's knee. "There," said Emma, after cleaning and bandaging the knee. Does it feel better now?" "Yes," said the little girl, smiling. "Would you like Aunt Olivia to sing you a song?" asked Jennifer. "Yes." Olivia picked up the guitar and began to sing a gentle song. Soon the whole family was singing along. It was at that moment that Rachel realized something. This was exactly the family Marcus had dreamed of. A family where everyone took care of everyone else, where love was abundant and unconditional, where differences complemented each other instead of clashing. "Jennifer," she whispered to her friend. "What?" "I think Marcus is happy, wherever he is. I'm sure he is. And do you know why?" "Why?" "Because we managed to do what he never could. We brought everyone he loved together into one family." "That's true. We are the family he dreamed of, but never had the courage to build. And it's a better family than he could have imagined." "Why do you say that?" "Because it's a family built on honesty, forgiveness, and choice, not on lies and obligation." Jennifer smiled. "Rachel, you know something." "What?" "I think this is the most beautiful love story I know." "Why do you say that?" "Because it's not the story of a man who loved two women. It's the story of two women who loved each other enough to build a family together." "That's true. Our story isn't about Marcus. It's about us. It's about choosing love over anger, choosing unity over separation, choosing to build instead of destroy, and most of all, choosing to forgive instead of seeking revenge." The two women hugged, watching their whole family singing together on the porch of the house they had turned into a home full of love. "Jennifer, thank you." "Thank you for what?" "For teaching me that family isn't about perfection. It's about love. Thank you for teaching me that it's possible to start over as many times as necessary, and that it's never too late to be happy, and that the best stories sometimes start with the most unlikely endings." Harold approached the two women. "Can I make a suggestion?" "Of course." "I think you should write this story." "What for?" "To show the world that it's possible to turn pain into joy, anger into love, separation into unity." "Do you think anyone would believe it?" "I think many people need to hear that it's possible to forgive and start over." Jennifer and Rachel looked at each other. "You know, that's a good idea," said Jennifer. "It is. We can write it together. Like our family. Together. And we can end it with the phrase you always say when we tell our story to the children." "Which phrase?" "And so we discovered that family is who you choose to love every day." It's perfect. That night, after everyone had gone to their homes, Rachel and Jennifer stayed on the porch planning how to tell their story. "Where do we begin?" asked Jennifer. "From the beginning. From an afternoon at the beach when a mother took 5 children to forget a little of the longing for the father who had left. And they found a stranded ship, and discovered that sometimes life's shipwrecks take us exactly where we need to be, and that sometimes we lose one thing to gain something even better, and that true love sometimes comes from where we least expect it, from a person who should have been our enemy but became our greatest ally, our best friend, our chosen sister, our family." Rachel picked up a notebook and wrote on the first page, "This is the story of 2 women who discovered that family isn't about blood. It's about choice. It's about forgiveness. It's about unconditional love. It's about building together what we never imagined was possible." Jennifer smiled. "It's a good start. It's the beginning of everything." And so, 20 years after that first meeting on the beach, Rachel and Jennifer were still together, still happy, still discovering that true love has no limits, no rules, and no end. Their 7 children had grown into wonderful adults, who in turn were raising the 3rd generation of that unlikely and perfect family. And every time someone asked how they managed to turn a painful betrayal into such a beautiful love story, they answered, "We chose to love instead of hate. We chose to build instead of destroy. We chose to be family." End of story. Now tell us what you thought of this moving story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave your sincere words in the comments. Do you believe Rachel made the right decision by seeking out Jennifer? We'd love to read your opinion. Thank you so much for your company. Don't forget to leave your like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other moving stories.